My name is Melissa Treinkman, and on behalf of myself and my co-author, Dr. Michael Johns, I'm honored to have the opportunity to present our study entitled The Manifestation of Vocal Fatigue, a survey of professional female opera singers and a single subject study of one professional opera singer. There are no disclosures. The objectives of this study were to ascertain how vocal fatigue manifests itself in the vocal range of a sample of professional female opera singers, and to assess changes in the vocal fold appearance of one professional female opera singer after extended operatic singing. This study was inspired by my own personal experience of vocal fatigue as a professional opera singer. I noticed that after extensive operatic singing, such as back-to-back rehearsals or an intense practice session, it was harder for me to sing in what I consider to be a head voice register in my lower middle range, from about middle C to a third above that. In other words, C4 to E4. To give you an example, this is the pitch C4, and I can sing it like this, E, in what I consider to be a head dominant register, or like this, E, in what I consider to be a chest dominant register. It may seem subtle, but I can definitely feel a big difference. After a lot of singing, my head voice register in that lower middle range starts to lose substance, and I feel the need to resort to a chest register to get a more stable sound. Chest voice in that same range, as well as the rest of my entire vocal range, feels unaffected or drastically less affected by vocal loading. We decided to investigate further with a survey study in conjunction with a single subject study. It's important to note that the discussion of registration in vocal pedagogy is a complex one, and singers will perceive and define registration differently. Additionally, vocal fatigue is also a highly complex, multifaceted phenomenon. 296 professional female opera singers were recruited to participate in an anonymous research survey entitled Temporary Impact of Vocal Fatigue in Professional Female Opera Singers. For the main question of the survey, singers were asked to report where in their vocal range they experienced the effects of vocal fatigue, and were instructed to select all the answer choices that applied to them from the following. A. Decreased facility or loss of strength in the lowest range, typically chest voice below middle C. B. Decreased ability to sing in a strong head voice in the lower middle range, approximately C4 to F4. C. Decrease in vocal presence, stability, or volume in the lower middle range, approximately C4 to F4. D. Decreased facility or loss of strength in the mid-middle range, approximately F4 to B4. E. Decreased facility or loss of strength in the upper middle range, approximately C5 to F5. F. Decreased facility or loss of strength in the higher range, upper passaggio and above. G. None of the above. I do not experience temporary voice changes after extended singing. Or H. Other. And participants were asked to specify. In the second part of this study, one professional female opera singer, me, underwent 2 laryngeal videostroboscopic exams pre- and post-vocal loading. The exams were independently evaluated and compared by 2 fellowship-trained laryngologists who were blinded to the nature and purpose of the study. The raters used the Valley rating form as published by Perburka and colleagues to evaluate vocal fold amplitude, mucosal wave, glottal closure, phase closure, and mucosal edema. They also answered comparative questions about the pre- and post-vocal loading exams. The 5 vocal tasks were E-vowel in chest voice on middle C, E-vowel in head voice on middle C, E-vowel on the pitch C5, E-vowel on the pitch G5, and E-vowel on a descending 5-note scale from G4 to C4. 54.4% of the survey participants were sopranos, 42.6% were mezzo-sopranos, and 2% were contraltos. 40.5% of participants were between the ages of 35 and 44, and 37.5% were 25 to 34 years of age. Participants were asked to designate the highest level of operatic performance they had achieved, and were given 6 options, ranging from a chorister at a small opera company to a main stage soloist at a large opera company. 46.3% of participants indicated they had sung main stage, in other words, leading roles at large A-level opera houses, for example, the Metropolitan Opera and Lyric Opera of Chicago. An additional 20.3% of participants indicated they had sung main stage roles at mid-sized B or C level opera houses, for example, Seattle Opera and Des Moines Metro Opera, making approximately 2/3 of the participants in this study elite-level operatic soloists. An additional 20.6% of participants were choristers at large A-level opera houses, positions which are also highly competitive and coveted in the opera industry. 42.9% of participants indicated a temporary impact on the lower middle range, approximately C4 to F4. 36.5% of total participants experienced a temporary impact on their lowest range, approximately below C4, and 19.6% reported a temporary impact on their higher range due to vocal fatigue. In the other category for this question, a notable number of participants, 17 total, mentioned their speaking voice was affected as a result of vocal fatigue, which is consistent with an impact on the lower middle range. Of the 296 survey participants, 192 of them, in other words, 64.9% of participants, experienced an impact on the lower middle range and/or the lowest range as a result of vocal fatigue. I will now discuss the most salient results of the single subject study, consisting of the video stroboscopic exams pre and post vocal loading. It's important to note that stroboscopy is subjective, its resolution is relatively low, and may not have been able to detect very subtle changes that could have been relevant to this study. Nonetheless, we decided to see if a descriptive analysis might be hypothesis generating. The most consistent findings on stroboscopy using the Valley analysis by the two blinded raters occurred in task number 2, the C4 head-voice condition. This chart shows a summary of each rater's comparative analysis of the pre- and post-vocal loading exams. Again, since they were blinded, the raters did not know these two videos were of pre- and post-vocal loading or that this was the C4 head-voice condition. Both raters thought amplitude increased post-vocal loading. Rater 1 thought mucosal wave increased post-loading, and Rater 2 said mucosal wave pre- and post-loading were equal. Both raters indicated that there was reduced glottal closure and reduced phase closure post-loading. The results of mucosal edema were equivocal, since Rater 1 said there was more edema before loading, and Rater 2 said there was more edema after loading. Overall, these findings correlate with the hypothesis of increased glottal insufficiency in the lower middle range head voice condition after vocal loading. I will now play the video of the C4 head voice condition before vocal loading. And now I will play the video of the same task later that morning after I had completed 1.25 hours of continuous operatic singing, much of which was at a high tessitura. As you can see, there appears to be increased glottal insufficiency in the post-vocal loading exam. There were several limitations of this study. First, vocal fatigue and vocal registration are highly complex issues, the nuances of which could not be completely captured in this study. Also, there are inherent limitations of both survey studies and single subject studies. And as mentioned before, stroboscopy is highly subjective. Still, despite these limitations, we found that a large proportion, 64.9% of the 296 professional female opera singers surveyed, reported increased difficulty navigating their lower middle range and/or lowest range after extended operatic singing. These results support the single subject study, which found that after vocal loading, there was a decrease in glottal competence while singing in head voice in the lower middle range. Thank you so much for your attention.